Right. Hello, everyone. So this is episode 2 of the Blob Watch. And today we've got Rhubba.
Hello.
We've got recurring guest Joz, the Great and Powerful.
Good evening.
And we've also got another recurring guest, Plantagent from the Basket Weavers.
Hello.
And like last time's format, it's going to be sort of discussing topical news stories that from the week, but also, maybe some obscure stories as well. And I guess we'll start, Rubber, with yourself. So you mentioned just before we went live that you came across on the Sims forum, sort of, I guess you say, sort of the slacktivist, like weak activism work on there. And so, what have we got up on screen at the moment?
So this has kicked off in the last couple of weeks. My family we have The Sims 4. It's a game we play from time to time, and it's the most milquetoast of video games. But there's a forum, so if there's anybody in my family have any questions, or they get stuck on something, they can go to the forum. So just check in on them. Recently, there's been complaints that the skin tone palettes when you create your own Sims is not diverse enough. So there's about 32 skin shades you can have in the game, but apparently it's not enough, and that people of color are not well represented. And also Native American skin tones aren't represented, which it's one of these things where a small group of people are kicking up a huge fuss, and the majority of browsers are just don't want to go there, because there was another thing where the amount of pre-made characters in the game. So most of the Sims you create yourself, but the game has pre-installed characters, and there's only one same-sex couple in the game, and they have a little pet dog. They have a little pet puppy, and that's considered a negative stereotype. So the slacktivists are saying, why can't we have more same-sex couples and they have their own human children? And then you've got other people going, gee, this is just a family game. We just don't want to go down this route. And then they get slammed, you are homophobic, you're transphobic, you're phobic. So when this one comes around, nobody who's just going, I think the game's okay as it is, they're all staying out of it. They just will not touch this.
Do they think that same-sex couples could have their own children?
Who are we to deny lived experience?
Sorry, I mean, I guess if one of the same gender couple was trans, that would work. But
there's what I could get. They say, well, they could either have adopted, okay, or it's from like a surrogate.
They'd have to have that in the game, though. That would require a lot of development.
Well, in the game, Sims can have babies either the normal way. I mean, it's all undercovers and pixelated out, but you can do it. And then the Sim gets pregnant, and things go the course in the game as they would in real life. But you have the option of calling an adoption agency. That is an option in the game. Or you can be really complex, because the game is a sandbox, and that you could have one of your gay couple kind of has an affair on the side with a heterosexual female Sim, and then they'll give birth to the baby, and then you take that baby off them.
Oof.
You can game that out if you so please. It's a sandbox game.
Right. Okay.
Sounds like a stable, healthy relationship.
But the thing is that I defend that. The libertarian side of me says, okay, you bought the game, It's your game. You create the characters. You run the story. If that's the story you want, yeah. If that's the way you want to play the game, I'm not going to be there as the moral police saying you can't play the game that way. You bought it. It's yours. But what the activists want is that they want that pre-installed into the game. They want it as a pre-made character's backstory, and it's permanently in the game, and you can't remove it.
I mean, that's quite interesting, at least. I don't know how much you know about other games development, but with Battlefield 5, I think it was, there was a whole quite a big issue spurred up with the obviously the representation in the video games.
Oh, yeah.
Generally, since the Gamergate has kind of been
like Morbidly Obese Black German World War One stormtroopers or something.
That's realistic, right there.
Hitler was a proud woman of color.
Well, was it Battlefield 5 or was it the previous one? And the advert was all in World War One, and I looked at that and I said must have, because the pure World War one looked awesome, and then came
sorry, go on.
And then there was the one supposedly World War Two.
Battlefield 1 was the one in World War One.
Yeah, Battlefield 1.
5 was the one in World War II with the female bomber pilot with the cyborg arm for some reason. If they'd done a whole mission story about the female Russian soldiers, I would have been okay with that. I might have considered playing that, because that sounds interesting at least. It's not just
to be a female Russian sniper or partisan, a partisan in any European country, just a female partisan would have been awesome. But how could that company go from Battlefield 1, which looked awesome, just looked absolutely amazing, to Battlefield 5 in the space of 18 months?
I remember with 5 there was a mission, part of the mission, where you get to be the Germans, and I think they really missed a trick with that, because they could have done I don't know if any of you seen Iron was it Iron Cross? Sort of from the German perspective,
Cross of Iron.
Cross of Iron, sorry, that was it. Yeah. And sort of a really good sort of from the German perspective narrative, but they absolutely ballsed up, because one of the big things was, number one, they didn't have the swastikas, but they made no reference to any sort of historical Nazi symbolism. And of course, at the time, if you raise that saying, well, it's not really realistic, it was why do you need Nazi symbolism? Only Nazis would really care about Nazi symbolism. And in one of the missions, there's a bit where you're the young soldier, and you do a salute to an officer, and it's basically the normal standard sort of Western style salute, that the Allies would have used. But obviously, in reality, it would be the full-on Nazi sort of Sieg Heil salute, and obviously that was completely sort of cut or removed. Because I think it was removed from the game. I think they were going to include it, but because of all the sort of woke nonsense that was going on at the time, I think for some reason they decided not to include it, and I think it really spoilt the immersion of it, I would say.
Well, to be fair, that salute, the kind of horizontal palm to the eye salute that most armies have, that was the standard Wehrmacht salute. So that they weren't in. If it was Wehrmacht to Wehrmacht, they would normally use that salute. It was only really the SS, or in the presence of a Nazi official, or at a state on a state level, they would do the Sieg Heil. But within the Wehrmacht, they would have done the army salute.
Yeah, after the July plot, they might have actually changed, though, that they had to start saluting even when it was just the Wehrmacht. Obviously,
because you might be right there. Yeah, I think that's
because this mission was set during 45. You see, it was when the Allies had just gone into Germany. And the reason why I said that, because I remember I was watching a documentary about it, especially the finals. I think it was the final weeks of Hitler's Germany, and you see not just the SS or the Volkssturm, which is like the home front lot, but you actually see footage of Wehrmacht soldiers increasingly coming under the command of I guess you could say the sort of diehard Nazis, and you see them like in public ceremonies and such, doing the proper Sieg Heil salute. I mean, I was aware of that the Wehrmacht and the Nazi regime. There were constant clashes. I mean, I think one of the famous ones was, of course, Rommel, and that I remember I did some digging into sort of his views on the Nazi on Nazism, and it's rather interesting because obviously he didn't think much of Hitler or the Nazis in general. And of course, there's been some speculation about his death, because obviously there was the official narrative story was that he was in his vehicle, and he was shot by a Spitfire. Though
that was what was told to the German public, at least after
yes,
you had to commit suicide.
Well, there was a little bit of truth to that, because during the Normandy campaign he was wounded by an Allied airstrike whilst touring Normandy in the defences. So what happened? He was from July onwards. He was technically convalescing, and that was when he was approached for the July plot. Although his view of the July plot is, we never had this conversation, and whatever transpires, I will recognise. So he said his basic point of view was that if you pull it off, I'll recognise you as the official government or whatever, but I'm not pulling any triggers, I'm not planting any bombs, and I'm not going to serve in any provisional government. And that was enough to damn him, because some of the plotters were tortured, and so names came up, who was conversing with who was chatting to who. So the thing was that the official line was that he succumbed to the wounds that he received in Normandy, but it was most likely cyanide.
Yes.
Well, from what I heard, what I read was that he basically was given a choice between either, I think it was a public trial when his family would also be imprisoned, or he could take the honourable suicide. Yeah. That's
yes, it was to protect his family as well.
Yeah, and of course he received a state a state funeral near enough. It was full military honours, full state honours, all that sort of stuff.
Well, the Nazis had to do that because he was with some of the other generals that are involved in the July plot. They'd already lost some of their. Their star had gone because they were held up to be failed. Most of them had commanded in Operation Barbarossa early on, and they had been. Or Bock or Beck. And their star had fallen, so it was easy to say, these are the traitors because they treasonously did not fulfill their mission in conquering Russia. But with Rommel, this is the Nazis really hyped him up. He was the star general, the dashing figure, and they couldn't then just say, oh, by the way, he was implicated in a plot to assassinate the Führer, so they had to they had to do the state funeral because of the publicity that he had, the star power, the aura, which still exists. I'll just say this as an aside. Did you know that back in 1999, GQ magazine ran a poll of the 100 most stylish men of the 20th century, and Rommel made the list.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
To be fair, I think a lot of that sort of persona or image from Rommel does come from the post-war narratives created by him by the West. Because I think at least because they had to obviously rebuild West Germany, they were looking for kind of like a positive German, or like a German figure they could kind of, the Germans weren't all bad. There's positive things about them. That's what,
I think the two most the two most acceptable Germans from the war that you could say now probably would be Rommel and of course Colonel von Stauffenberg, who was the main not such leader, but the one who basically like the Guy Fawkes figure in the plot. He was the one that, of course, set the bomb and everything else, and in that film with Tom Cruise, it was, of course, Tom Cruise was the one that played
Operation
Stauffenberg.
Valkyrie. Yeah.
Valkyrie, yeah, he was the missing eye and everything, and I think, I don't know if it's, do we know that Stauffenberg, did he ever meet Rommel? Because I know that he was wounded in North Africa.
I think he's got the 21st Division, so he might have been at the staff of it. So he might have.
I have to look into that, but that's a good point. I'd say the other redeemable figure from the Wehrmacht is Rundstedt, because he is promoted as the kind of the old Prussian officer, and that little bit above the party politics, and he lived. That was the other thing. They needed somebody alive that was mostly acceptable, and Rundstedt was that. Rommel, I think his reputation, and the Allies were keen to rehabilitate Rommel because he's seen as the professional. Because the Africa Corps are they're the acceptable face of the German war machine in World War II, because they never murdered civilians. They had the code of the Desert War, which was, if you find your enemy stranded in the desert, of course you would take them with you and feed them and give them water. You wouldn't let them die in the desert, because whatever you do to your enemy in the desert, they will do back to you. So Rommel had this, the standing orders to all his units were, if you find British and Commonwealth in the desert stranded, take them prisoner. Don't abandon them. Because if you're abandoned, if you get stuck out there, they'll do the same to you. So he is a very, he's a figure that they can say, okay, this is the good professional German. And of course, James Mason plays him twice in Hollywood films in the 50s, which just adds to the allure, as it were.
Yeah. I'll just say hello to Saffron and hello to Felix, who have both joined in the chat. I'm very surprised that Felix put up here. I'm very surprised that there hasn't been a Hollywood film about Rome. Yeah, I think that would be quite a good one. Definitely interesting. I think also, I mean, again, the problem is, especially nowadays with how the German army is represented today, especially through like the crazy revisionist historians that are out there at the moment, they can't really distinguish between the Waffen SS, which I think was what most of them think of when you say German army during World War II, and as we said, the rank and file soldier in the Wehrmacht, because I was looking at some stats when I was probably a few years ago, actually, when I was studying the Nazi regime, and I think it was some ridiculous 5% of soldiers in the Wehrmacht were actually members of the Nazi Party. It was really low, really, really low number. And obviously, in the Waffen SS and other SS units, you have to be a fully signed up Nazi.
Actually, I think what it was, originally in the Wehrmacht, you couldn't actually be part of a political organization. You had to be loyal to the state. But I think at some point during the regime, it changed, so you could be in the Wehrmacht as well as being part of the party. But I'm not sure what the exact date where it was.
In the late 30s, a whole series of classes of state official had to swear loyalty oaths to the Führer, and I think the army was 1937. So all general staff, everybody on the general staff had to swear an oath of allegiance. And I think soon after that came the judges and, the police chiefs, the go-lighters. They had a series. It was all designed to lock the functions of the state, to lock them in with the party. I don't think you had to be a member of the party, but you had to swear the oath of allegiance.
Oh yeah, that was now when I was doing my GCSEs, because at the same time as the film Valkyrie came out, and I memorized off heart the oath of allegiance in German to the Wehrmacht soldiers. I being the absolute, sort of edgy teenager that that was, I would go around sort of just repeating it in German, and because again I went to a boarding school, and it was I did have to stop doing it when a German chap started, and he turned around to me and said, why are you swearing Alicia's Hitler constantly?
That would be on your report.
I can explain. This will come back in 10 years' time. It'll come back and say that at school somebody will rat you out. Somebody, one of your former schoolmates who's gone to the left will rat you out and said, and he did that, and you'll be there going, I can explain. There's a context.
Well, because I'm in the Conservative Party. I mean, if say I was like on a Victoria Derbyshire program or whatever, or I would just sit there and say, yeah, I said it. So what? I mean, I think I'd just do like a Sargon and just like own it, and just see how that plays out.
You see, okay, while we're on that subject, right? I'm of the opinion, right? A lot of people disagree with him, but I'm of that opinion. He won that bout with Victoria Derbyshire.
Oh, definitely. I mean, my parents who were watching it at the time. I mean, the first thing my dad said when he stopped watching it, he was said, well, he said he wouldn't rape her, so what's the problem? And to be fair, they're quite sort of not in tune with the whole internet culture sort of stuff. But even when they watched it, they were like, well, what's the problem? I want to hear his policies. Why they're asking about these sort of stuff that they said was online? I mean, I remember watching it. He came across quite calm, quite collective, and actually probably quite professional, more so than I think any other sort of politician would come across. And she came across very much as trying to, I guess, like internalize the inner Paxman, and she go for the gotcha moment, which I think failed. I think she came across as quite, arrogant.
Yeah. She looked like she had the demeanor of a deputy school headmistress who suspects someone of doing something wrong, a pupil of doing something wrong, but she can't quite prove it.
I think,
and so she's giving him the withering stare to see if he'll crack.
Thing about Derbyshire as opposed to somebody like Paxman or Andrew Neil is that they are combative with everyone. And where if you see her with Jess Phillips, they are just friendly.
That's Tesco. I'm just going to duck out for a sec.
Okay.
Well, yeah, man, I don't really think Victoria Derbyshire is particularly the most aggressive interviewer, especially if it's somebody on their side. Quote unquote.
Well, exactly. She's just a bit of a bitch, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, I think being a TV presenter, it's pretty one of the characteristics to get there in the first place, isn't it?
Well, I mean, in that particular interview, she just came across as just unnecessarily aggressive. It was so obvious that she just disliked him.
And that's the thing, I guess, especially if you are like some BBC presenter and you're interviewing some YouTuber who's like started his own political campaign, you really don't want to come into it with that much respect for the person.
Oh no,
yeah,
not at all. She genuinely just came across as she was being a bitch because she didn't like it.
Yeah, definitely. That's kind of, I mean, obviously Peterson's a bit different, but it's the same sort of concept with the whole Peterson.
God,
yeah. He just came across as condescending and just, I can do what I want. I'm in charge here. Yeah.
Oh, I loved his face when she said like, so you're comparing humans to lobsters, and he was like, yes.
Yes. the Chad yes meme form.
I mean, you need like the yes meme for that. That one is like.
Is there a yes meme for Jordan Peterson?
Oh, there's probably a summer on the internet. I wouldn't be surprised.
Oh, so yeah. I mean, like Jordan Peterson memes is basically like the Rule 34. Like if it's been thought of, it's probably been done out there somewhere.
Yes,
out of interest, Joz, have you got any news while Rubba's gone off to sort his shopping out? Have you got any news item, like news stories from the week that you'd like to discuss here?
Nothing particularly sort of niche, I suppose, like Rubba's Sims forum. I guess the two things that I would think about, well, I think the exam results one is something that I particularly have been annoyed about. It seems like, what was it, 40% of kids' grades have been downgraded from what the teachers predicted. Which I'm not sure exactly how they did that.
Well, I mean, is the marking done by? Is it the civil service institution that does it, or is it?
That's my question.
Yeah,
is I mean, I haven't seen anywhere how they actually did it.
Yeah, so at least with what I've seen on the DVSA, apparently they sent out like for the rescheduled tests, half the people was like the wrong people, and at least from student finance, I got two of the same letter sent over and over. And what I at least make out is that the whole civil service is running on like 50%. People actually like working in it right now, so they're taking all these shortcuts, just no standards or anything, and it's just a complete shit show.
Because I've spoken to a couple of people from sort of Twitter and Discord or whatever, and there was a couple of younger, I guess, members of that who were saying that they've had their results downgraded quite significantly. They missed out on university places, and it's like, okay, so I know for a fact that if I'd been in their position, I wouldn't have gone to the university that I did. So congratulations, you've just changed somebody's life for the worse.
I mean, some of the stuff is ridiculous. Like, there's people being predicted like A's and B's, and they're getting D's and E's. It's just.
Is it based on the previous performance of that school?
I think from my own experience, my brothers did it, and apparently you also send in copies of your work and your past work, and also your mock grades. Then it also gets tied into like the school's historic results with those.
So even if you did sick in your mocks and your work's good, then it will still get downgraded because the school has done badly in the past.
I think potentially, yeah. I think
fuck?
that can still work out like that, yeah.
So it's done on some statistical model, then I guess.
Well, we all know how reliable those are.
Well, exactly. I think this is the first time I've seen the left criticizing statistical models.
It's beautiful
because it's so.
Remember,
it's something that serves their narrative, so.
Well, the trouble is, left is also involved because, of course, for those who may not be aware fully, it all started with Scotland, and of course, you got the quote-unquote Scottish National Party, though Scottish Leftist Party, to be honest, absolute raving nutters on sort of the woke spectrum, and they had their own results, and I think Count Dankula. In one of his videos, probably put it, summed up quite nicely. The actual results that came through was those in basically poor areas of Scotland. So you're looking at like your Central Belt and your Dundee and your Aberdeen and such. Had their scores were very low, and of course those in the sort of more prosperous, well-to-do areas. I think I wouldn't say high, but probably normal to average. And
I saw some Twitter commies. I think is that Ash Sarkar or one of those matters saying, no one from Eton has been downgraded. And my comment on that is, well, does Eton have a track record of accurately predicting really good results?
Do they actually? That's the point. I mean, first of all, is this A levels? Because my first question: do Eton facilitate A levels?
They must do, otherwise they wouldn't go to universities.
Yeah,
it's not baccalaureate or anything; it is A levels.
Yeah, well, actually, that's a good point about Eton, because now she said, well, Eton's school hasn't been reduced.
My point is, does Eton consistently predict good results, and do they consistently achieve those same results?
Well, I mean, that's one thing is a lot of people do get like higher predicted marks than they actually get in the people. Is there like a tendency among teachers to overrate their students and how well they'll do?
But is that overrating more exacerbated in the lower income areas? Whereas in Eton, if they're predicting them 4A stars, then they're quite likely to get 4A stars.
And that's at least at A level, I think if you have the resources available to you and it's a decent amount of work ethic, I mean, even you don't have that good of a work ethic, as long as you just memorize stuff, you can do quite well at A level. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's yeah.
Well, I mean, there's no. I mean, I went to probably the poshest private school in my area, and compared to the kids at the less well-off state schools, obviously the private schools was just destroying them in terms of exam results, and the predicted grades were quite accurate.
Yeah, I mean, I think generally maybe private schools also, from what I've seen, they do predict it's harsher when they come to predicting grades. So
Yes, I would predicted grades lower than I ended up achieving. So as I said, I know if I'd just gone with my predicted grades, I wouldn't have got into university.
I mean, one thing I noticed was I went to a pro school at one point, also been to like state and colleges and stuff, and generally at state schools they seem a lot more optimistic about students, whereas at private schools they always seem to be putting people down.
The state schools have got the whole. I mean, I know it's a bit cringe, but the whole participation trophy ethic is you can't kick the kid down.
I guess I don't know. I think that even in private schools, there's like a whole move that's getting more prevalence though, even now. So
yeah, and of course, probably the other sort of story of the week, which is, I mean, technically it happened like last week-ish, like the end of last week, but it's sort of been carrying on to this week. Is of course the Dawn Butler fiasco. And obviously, you know, we hear in the media, like when they talk about Boris, like just like before the election, it was like, oh, you're Boris, a known liar. Well, we actually know that Dawn Butler is a known liar, but she's still doubling down. Even today, she doubled down, and Sky doubled down for her on her behalf, saying, "Oh, the driver was black. It wasn't a the image wasn't tampered with, and and that we were pulled over because of my race, even though all the windscreens were tilted, like blacked out. So I don't know how they even were able to see who was in the vehicle.
It's so blatantly obvious the guy was white as well. Even the blurred photos, you can see his like arm and his neck.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I don't. One article I don't know if at least when you do my one I could bring out one from the Spectator for Dud's Murray, which is on Dawn Butler, which would be quite interesting.
Yeah, do you want to send it on the private chat?
Yeah, of course. I don't know. Yeah, I'll send that through
because I can bring it up.
Yeah, so she wasn't even driving, but she thinks she was pulled over because of racism when the guy was blatantly white, and then flipped the image so it looks like she's driving initially.
I mean, the easiest way to tell, because I managed to find footage, we'll have a look at it in the set, but if you can tell it's been flipped, is if you look at the officer's uniform, because it should say like police on his on his chest bit by his radio. Now, if the police is, I mean, depending on how much quality we can get on it, I mean, looking for some high quality bits to go with it, but if it's not high quality, then we can still have a look at it. But if it's reversed, then we know that she's altered it. If it's normal, then we'll know that it hasn't been altered.
I wouldn't be surprised if they've altered it. I'll put it that way.
Okay. Right, I've got to. Hang on a sec. Oh, okay, no, I'm just. Sorry, everyone, I'm retarded.
That makes two of us, man.
I know, I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, well, apparently, Spectator's asking me for a 3-month subscription.
Oh yeah, I could. That's the thing. On my laptop it works fine, but on my for some reason my computer, I could try sending over a copy from my laptop, see if I can come up with the thing. Because I'll send it over again and see if it.
Yeah, I've got the Spectator front page here. I'm just I
don't know if that will be any different, but we hope for the best. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, that is the same link.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, on my laptop it's fine. Comes up, you can just read it. But then apparently not. Maybe that's I'm logged on my laptop, not on my computer. I'm guessing. I could always I could always take a screenshot of it and send it like over. But that's probably a bit much. I don't know if that's a bit much or if that's worth it or not. Yeah, up to you.
Where is it in, like, if you go on like the main like home page of the Spectator, where is it located? Is it on like under topics? Or?
It was on the front page a couple of days ago, but I think if you scroll to the bottom, it was at the bottom, but this was yesterday. I don't know if it's still there. It was under Pretty Society or I thought Politics. I think maybe writers maybe or most. I know it's on most popular. If you scroll down and go to most popular, it's the first one actually.
Mm. Mm. I haven't got most popular on here, but I've got. If I go to, I guess I just keep on scrolling through. It's taking me day by day, like Wednesday.
I can check the date. It was 15th of August. Oh, from the magazine issue 15th of August, so it's the most recent issue. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it just says the issue doesn't say the day. I think it was posted online a couple of days ago.
Oh, yeah, I've got it here. I've got it.
Lovely.
Yeah, okay, I've got it. Oh, okay. Hang on a sec. All right, I'm gonna have to sign it. It wants me to have a free account. Okay. All right.
Oh, this is going well.
You think somebody trying to sell a magazine would fix that?
I know. I find the Spectator online website quite annoying personally. I'd always just get the the physical copy of it rather than reading it online.
Yeah, I mean, I count it under mainstream news, so I tend to ignore it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the only piece of news I read. To be honest, I find all my friends that stay up to date with the 24-hour news cycle. It just looks so cancerous to me. But then
it is. I was recently staying with my parents for a short while, and they have BBC on all the time. My mum literally sat on the sofa while she was working from home with it just on in the background. It was doing my absolute head in. It was such shit.
Always is, isn't it?
I don't understand. My mum's relatively based, so I don't understand how she could put up with it.
Then maybe she's not BBC pilled. that sounds. I disavow that statement.
What are you trying to say?
Wow. Oh no. That didn't sound right when it came out. Oh.
No, I mean I've done my best to try and turn my parents off to the news, but I think that I don't think they're quite ready to admit that the man on the TV is lying to them.
Yeah, I think especially a lot of people in that sort of generation that grew up with TV, they are quite. They do see the TV as some sort of authority figure. That's at least what I've kind of noticed. But
yeah, fucking boomers.
Right, I've signed up to the Spectator, so we got this. Yeah, so here's a Spectator article about I guess about the sort of quote unquote incident that Dawn Butler faced with the racist white Metropolitan Police. Right, so hearing that Dawn Butler MP been pulled over by the Metropolitan Police, I briefly hope the taxpayer might get back the Whirlpool bath she charged us over her parliamentary expenses. Yeah, now she was in the top 3 MPs who had the highest expenses.
Wasn't David
her and Lammy were right up there.
Of course they were.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, she's absolutely the worst when it comes to that. She so it's rather entertaining that she's playing the victim. I mean, for me, this is basically like a Jessie Smollett incident, UK edition.
It's even worse for me. I mean, she didn't hire anyone.
Well, for all we know, she could have got the quote unquote black friend to phone up the police and say, listen, there's a couple of dodgy people driving a such and such vehicle round wherever they were driving round. I think it was Islington or somewhere. Yeah, and
I'll believe that if there's evidence. Whereas in Jessie Smollett's case, there was direct evidence that he'd hired the.
I listen. I wouldn't put it past any of them because it's quite clear that I mean, the race grifting has gone from calling Jacob Rees-Mogg a Nazi to basically fuck the police, sort of NWA direct policy of fuck the police. And I mean, it's quite clear that Dawn Butler wants the police to be defunded.
It's so desperate to be African American.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
It's so much cooler than British.
I wonder if she did university in America, because I know David Lammy went to Harvard.
Lammy did, yeah. He picked it all up there.
Maybe she got indoctrinated in America, for all we know.
I think she got indoctrinated by Lammy. I think Lammy's like
she is an unironic agent of Lammy.
Yes. I mean, he's got agents across London. I mean, there's that other one that's like the blind one that she got mixed up with Dawn Butler, like the ITV or BBC got them mixed up, and yeah, and she I mean, again, they kicked off this thing saying, "Oh, racism! BBC is racist." And
they noticed they didn't do it when Owen Jones gets it mixed up on The Guardian.
Yeah,
Wiley and Kano.
That was fucking hilarious.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, I'm going to a pretty editorial to the state, though. It's not like you can't really blame Owen Jones for that, despite him being a prat. I mean, it probably wasn't him that actually made that mistake.
Oh, it's so funny.
No, but at the same time, you know, let's be honest. If, say, The Spectator or any other, let's say, rightish paper made that mistake, you know, Owen Jones, he would be on their backside like a shit over a shovel sort of thing. He wouldn't give them quarter, even though that he would know that the journalists necessarily, as you said, aren't responsible for that aspect of the editorial work that goes into the paper. But no, people like Owen Jones, I mean, you know, and Navarra Media and all of them, they would be, you know, screeching from the rooftops of how, you know, institutional racism, blah blah blah. But I mean, yeah, the article here, it sort of goes on about the footage, which was released by the police, and I think we have to say that the police were actually very polite when it came to her. I don't think, in many ways, I think we'd want to talk about the footage. I think she came across as a very condescending, very elitist figure, talking down to the police. The officers, I think, were actually very restrained. I think that they could have, you know, they admitted that said, well, this car was registered, it was in Yorkshire, and they went on to say that actually the number plate, they put it in wrong, which is rather interesting because I don't think that would be the case because it's all automatic. Their number plate readers, they're all like scanned in, they're like a scanner in the car or something that can scan the plates. So I don't know what that was about. I mean, I don't know what, I mean, I'll probably be sort of brutally honest. The reason why I think they were pulled over is the vehicle, which you know, blacked out tinted windows in an area which has high, you know, knife, gang crime, drug dealing. It probably screamed, the car probably screamed drug dealer car.
I mean,
now,
generally, there's like a type of car, it's like, yep, I know you're a drug dealer.
Yeah.
Depending on the neighborhood, yeah.
And yeah, also it depends. I mean, I guess you also think how the person's driving, like all the different. There's a lot of factors at play.
Yeah, I mean, the police have to make that judgment call, and of course, those officers that pulled them over, they're like the sort of crime, sort of gang crime prevention unit, I believe, because they were some of them were in uniform, but a few of them were sort of in sort of under, I guess you'd like to say undercover, sort of in their own like civvies and such. So for them, their mission for the day would have been to have patrolled and to do stop and searches, which again, you know, was brought back by Sadiq Khan because, you know, he got rid of stop and search, got rid of it. Knife crime and murder and everything else went skyrocketing. He had to reintroduce it because of that very reason. And you know, I mean, and for me, one of the things that's frustrating is she obviously, this was, for me, I think this was all staged. As we said, I don't have any proof of it. But at the same time, there's something off about it. Like because she seemed when she started filming, she seemed really overly confident, which screams to me that she was either anticipating or she was prepared in some way.
Nah, she's just really entitled. I don't think there's anything more
It's
to
pretty
it.
fun to just believe her whatever she said, and like once the party, like the machinery and the media machinery gets behind her, it doesn't really matter what the truth will be.
She knows that as soon as she accuses them of racism, it's over for them, and she's going to be in the clear. Like, and yeah, as I said, she's just a bit of an entitled bitch. I can imagine a lot of, I guess, powerful people acting like that. She knows she's the one with the, with the stick.
Yeah, and I wonder what her, because obviously there was the everything that she said in that clip where she basically said, she went on sort of the usual race grifter lines. I would like to know what her aims for that was. Obviously you got the personal sort of race grifter, sort of all about me sort of news story that would go along with that. Similar with Lammy and such. But at the same time, what would she have wanted to have happened from that? Because she obviously sent the footage. She sent the footage into Sky. She sent it to Channel 4 and all the other usual news outlets. And given the current situation with the whole Black Lives Matter and that ridiculous super homo family forever lot in Brixton, marching around in fake, like literally it's cardboard cutout stab proof vests, half of them.
Yeah,
It's
that's
like,
ridiculous.
I mean, God's sake, guys. I've seen. There's probably like dodgy porno outfits which have better like more accurate pictures. But
Probably
to me, it's like she must have known of the risk that she could have caused a riot. Like when I say a riot, as in the quote unquote community could have interpreted it in the way that she wanted and said, "Oh my God, this is an outrage. We need to go and do something." And then you have a repeat of 2011 on the streets of London.
She doesn't give a fuck about that. She's not going to be near it.
Oh, I know she won't give a fuck about it, but that's because that's what I'm just trying to wonder. Was she trying to incite basically public disorder, or was it she was trying to incite? Or was it just
finding evidence of police being institutionally racist, quote unquote, is never going to harm her. Like it just suits her, I guess, grift in general as a sort of general principle, not for a specific event to try and happen. It just enforces her whole narrative.
Especially once you get the whole narrative, like once you get this happened, we're saying the things kind of come fall together. Like the activists will go out, they'll do their thing. I feel like it's pretty simplified to say she was kind of saying, yes, we are trying to incite violence or riot. It's more pretty just serving the narrative, serving the cause.
Yeah, it's another piece of evidence.
Yeah. Well, actually, you see the thing that came out today about a study found that when it comes to like letting students into institutions, or it's the only discrimination is positive discrimination. It's not actually, there's no actual negative discrimination against groups. It's all positive against whites or Asians.
They run all the institutions.
I think it was in the USA. It was the study came out or something.
Nobody.
Sorry about that. They forgot to deliver all my frozen stuff, so I had to get on the phone and say, "I need chips."
Quite disgraceful.
Yes.
So Rhubba, we've just been discussing, I guess, the Dawn Butler incident and the ongoing, because it's ongoing, because race grifters are going to race grift till the cows come home,
and they get away with it because no one in the media or anybody connected just goes no. I mean, it just they just pandered to her, and I was chatting online with Gammon Easter worshipper about this, and so the next thing is that Cressida Dick's going to wring her hands and say, "Oh my, how terrible!" Those police officers in the video are going to get a reprimand. perhaps shuffled away to a horrible desk job until they quit the force. And the Conservative Party and the government, there'll be backbenchers in the Conservative Party. Oh, isn't this terrible? I mean, those poor police officers. If only there's something we could do about it. Us in a government with an 80 majority, what can we do? Because honestly, they're like that. They're you got these lovable Tory backbenchers, and you go, oh, come on, guys! You know what to do.
I mean, literally, I don't know what happens when you become a Tory MP, whether they chop your bollocks off or something. But for God's sake, they need to do something about how they come across, because it's always conceding to the media. I've said it like to AA and such about what's they need to stop. What is it? They need to stop trying to appease the Guardian readers, because at the end of the day, the Guardian readers are all just going to think you're Tory scum. That's the truth of the matter. You're going to be Tory scum no matter what you do. You need to go out there. Now, I mean, I would have loved to have seen a Tory backbencher MP just go on Sky or BBC and say, no, Dawn Butler is a no liar. She has completely been caught out on multiple instances, whether it's her expenses, whether it's other sort of like donations, like to the Obama campaign, right back along. She has a very sort of checkered history. And I would love to have seen a Conservative MP saying, listen, I've watched her clip and I think she's full of shit.
Yeah. You need, perhaps not. I think the Right Honourable Lady is somewhat mistaken in her claims. You would phrase it like that.
Yeah, you wouldn't go there and say like, "Oh yeah, you're full of shit," even though.
But you would robustly, because I know they think this deep down. They know, they would admit it to themselves, and perhaps they would admit it to a small circle. Oh yes, she is a lying race grifter. But you want them to publicly just stand up and go no.
Yeah.
And actually, this was an idea British Knight and I had a few weeks ago, was that perhaps set up a business where you take prospective Conservative parliamentary candidates and you like run this kind of camp where you try and desensitize them to the media. So you lock them away for about the boot camp for 2 weeks, where you just and you kind of sensory depriving them and just feeding them hack questions, Sky News style, until they develop this kind of no, Bolton, stop it.
Now, Rhubba, you'll find this interesting, because obviously I don't know if I've probably mentioned this 1,000 times to people who've watched the streams and everything. Obviously, I'm a member of the party. I'm running to be a councillor next year. And I received an email from my local party on training, right? Like, and including media training, right? Basically, I've got a 20-year-old who's going to be telling me basically how to campaign and how to deal with the media. And at the same time, it's basically the training that I've had. It's basically okay. Here's the party political hymn sheet. Here's the spin. Never get too aggressive, because if you sound a bit passionate or a bit aggressive, then you're gonna say something, get us all into trouble, and then you're going to come across really badly to the voters. And I think one of the problem is a lot of them aren't really in touch with the voters, not as much as they think they are, of what the voters like when it comes to what we were saying about the Dawn Butler. And if an MP went out there and said, listen, she, said, I've looked at the footage and I think that the Right Honourable Lady is telling some porcupines or something like that. I think that the general public, especially the Conservative voting public, would probably look at that and say, "Yeah, I agree with them on that point." But the party would be saying, "Oh no, look what you've opened now," and then and I've been trying to figure out why is it there's this sort of weakness with the media and with the opposition when it comes to confronting them and being quite assertive and sort of in your face. And I think a lot of it is down to the where the party has been for the last like 20, 30 years, because ever since Major's defeat, the party has clawed its way back. But it's always had to be like, especially the current leaders in the party, they've had to deal with coalitions, and they've had to have like consensus governments where they've had to do like give and take with the likes of the Lib Dems. And so I think that the reason why they're especially quite like, I guess, defanged when it comes to their opponents is because ultimately they're still stuck in that mindset.
Well, I think it's been a 25-year process, as you said. It goes back years to the latter half of the Major government, where anything that the Conservative Party and the Major government did was automatically wrong in the press, and they got slammed. I remember one time, and this was when Ian Duncan Smith was the leader briefly.
Yeah,
and he did a speech where he said the Labour manifesto is like a meal at a Chinese restaurant. It's all great at the time, but 2 hours later, you feel hungry and you want more again. Now, there was just a throwaway line. Most people in the world have forgotten that moment, except on Channel 4, Krishnan Guru Murthy. Just he had I think it was Peter Lilly, it was whoever the party chairman was at the time, and saying Ian Duncan Smith is a racist, he's maligning Chinese people, and Peter Lilly was saying it's a metaphor, Krishnan. But Murthy wouldn't let it go. Racist, race baiting, right? And I think, and then again, nothing the Conservatives could do between say 1996 and 2007 it just got any good press. And Alistair Campbell ruthlessly controlled the press. I mean, this is something you youngins might not remember this, but certainly the likes of AA, Britisher, and myself, we remember all of this very well. The ruthless control of the press, the politicization of the press, that if you were old school neutral and, they were never neutral. I would say that the likes of the old guard like John Humphreys, Alistair Stewart, would have been old-fashioned liberals, right? They would have been old-school liberal voters, not the monstrosity we have now, claiming that title, but they would have been that. But they would have suppressed as much as they could out of professionalism. They would have suppressed that bias and been sort of, down the line with everybody, much like we praise Andrew Neil. And Campbell was very good at saying to those news outlets that weren't giving the Blair government good press, no snippets for you, no scoop for you. You get nothing. You don't turn. If you slight us, you're out of the loop. He was very ruthless at that. And the Conservatives, I think, that built in a fear that they will lose they needed it. They needed public support, and I think the whole project of Blairism, one of its secondary goals was to undermine the core identity of the Conservative Party. Yes. And I think it's half succeeded, because I think you see glimmers where the old fire still burns. And an issue like Brexit, and particularly after Boris had his purge, the Boris ascent to leadership, and he had the purge of I
have my own beliefs that purge. I was 100% on board with the purge. I mean, when they kicked out, Nicholas Soames and all the other like absolute useless wets, I was cheering. I was going, yes, fucking go Boris. But it was like a half complete purge. I think he should have gone further. Now, I mean, personally, I know what you're going to probably say, Rhubba, about. I would have taken out the rest of the Notting Hill set, but at the same time, he is a member.
Yeah,
of
but you're getting rid of my close personal friend. Remember?
Yeah. Now listen, Michael Gove. He is a redeemable character, but I mean, yes, he is a redeemable character. I mean, I met him at I think probably one of the conferences. I think we spoke like for very, very briefly. I mean, he obviously. I don't think he is like the like an Osborne sort of level of Notting Set conservative. He isn't one of those. He is quite down to earth. He was. I mean, this was at a time when he was talking about a lot of the fishery policy, especially his own personal experience, like within Scotland and such, with the fisheries and how the industry up there was decimated by EEC policy, later EU policy. But it seems to me that one of the problems, and I think I mentioned it with you on Twitter before, was that the party is too centralised in London. And I think if you look back, probably even back to Thatcher's time, the party was very localized. It was like, talk about like Milkman localism. It was very much localized in the regional, in the constituency branches.
I can't remember who it was, but I remember seeing quite recently there's been, at least with the 80 new MPs that came in from the north, they've got their own sort of group chat, they've got their own sort of organisation. They're coming into quite a bit of conflict with the Tory party HQ and not like towing the party line.
No, because the trouble is, one of the things, and this is one of the biggest mistakes the Conservatives are making at the moment. They think that the reason why they won those northern seats was because they're all left-wing seats, and that means the MPs are probably more left-wing Conservatives. They are not.
No.
They are socially right-wing. They're socially right-wing. Some of them are very deeply Christian, and they will not. They're not the sort of liberal, let-it-flow, lovey-dovey Londoner type that the party seems to be getting, and the party has got this absolutely mixed up. Now, maybe economically, some of them are more, centre to the left from the north, but socially, like many Northerners, they are very socially to the right.
Yeah, and this is the thing that those red wall Tories, some of them weren't expected to win those seats. So what you have is that you don't have like a rising star parachuted into a lot of these constituencies in the hope that they'll win and then they'll be fast-tracked into cabinet. Some of these people are chosen from local associations because they've built up the local connections over a period of time. So
they're not.
And which is, I think, is the best way of doing it. I just think anybody... I would like a system where the party says that you cannot be an MP until you've done some time in local government first.
Oh yeah, I mean you could compare it to the sort of weakness of aristocracy of old, where they become, because they are picked basically from a very select group from society, that the more that they're picked, the more that they fall out of touch with society. And I mean, now that same could be said for Labour, because now, to be fair, Labour, they do a lot of parachuting as well with their candidates, and so it goes across both parties. But I mean, I think one of the things with the Conservatives, like as you said, a lot of those MPs weren't expected to win. And of course, a lot of those MPs that did win are, I mean, especially those northern ones. I mean, they hold immense sway and power in the party. I mean, that northern group, that block of red wall Tories, could go to the Prime Minister and say, "Listen, do this," and probably Boris would have to do it, because they are probably the most powerful regional Conservative bloc in this current Parliament, definitely.
But what has to happen is that the current crop of Conservatives, I think they're still living in fear of what the media say about them, and that needs to be broken. That absolutely.
What is the word for a country that's ruled by its media rather than by a government?
But it's I think I said this on This Week in History a few weeks ago, that we have a situation where we have a government with a majority of 80, and they were elected by the voters, but they are ring fenced. There's what's stopping the government from connecting with the public is that the media are ring fencing the government, and then the civil service are, and then all the quangos. So we have, and with quangos, I'm including academia, experts, all these kind of think tanks. They are cocooning the government and preventing the government from sort of gauging the public, because that's why we have the policy we have on COVID-19. This is why we have the policy we have on policing. This is why it took, how long did it take? It took a week to 2 weeks for the government to sort of sit up and say, actually, no, you can't tear down statues. The lag between statues coming down, protesters kicking off in London, and the government saying, actually, this is unacceptable, it was huge, and it shouldn't have been.
But they're not wait to see what the prevailing opinion is. They don't have I guess, equivalent to a prevailing opinion. They're not kind of preempting it in the same way that Labour would. They would say this is right, this is wrong.
Hang on, they've returned with my frozen stuff. I'll be back.
Well, I mean, at least with the way the Tory party acts ever since Blair and the whole Blair report, just reminds me of, I always kind of just visualize it as the French Revolution, and of the whole of the left-right dichotomy did come from that in the first place, but just the fact that fundamentally the current iteration of the Tory party, at least the management, headquarters, whatever it operates. I mean, I don't really know too much about the internal workings of the party. I'll be honest. It's just Labour 5-10 years ago. It's nothing conservative about them.
Well, look, I mean, if you could probably class the Blair years as a revolution, because he passed more laws in his time than all of human history, all of British history.
Like 5 hours a day on average or something, wasn't it?
He changed.
If you see the chart compared with Margaret Thatcher and Blair, because Margaret Thatcher was the one that was always considered to be the most radical, because she was one that did change a lot of laws and introduced a lot of laws. But if you compare her record to Blair, I mean, it's nothing. It's like a drop in the ocean. I mean, it really is. Like he was the one that instituted the Cultural Revolution, and Peter Hitchens is absolutely right. I mean, if you see the sort of influence that he had over society, it was beyond any prime minister that has happened before, and even now afterwards, because he had a complete top-down control, and he really did sort of change the fabric of society.
I mean, at least with what you were saying earlier, obviously about how the Alistair Campbell and his PR team, they just played the media like a fiddle. I mean, how much do you reckon that came from at least the image and the persona and the cult around Blair did just come from the media image and not actually holding him to account? So I mean, one thing I saw is apparently apparently ever since in the media have been trying to repent for not holding Blair to account, like they overcompensate for it. I don't know. Yeah,
they probably just support him.
Yeah.
Well, if they were truly overcompensating, they would have taken a harder line with the Remainers. And also they'd be taking a harder line, not so much on Corbyn, but certainly with Starmer at the moment. I think one or two of them have repented, but they're the ones that have kind of left the big mainstream corporations and are going around saying "free at last." Humphrey, Stewart.
Everybody leaves these corporations. They just throw a new man or woman once they've left them.
Yeah, it's incredible watching kind of like these old doyens of media broadcasting leaving ITV and BBC and just going free at last. Now, what's sad, I think, a journalist who's gone in the other direction is Matthew Parris, because about 10 years ago, Parris said the big failure of the media in the 90s and early 2000s was not holding the Blair government to account when they got rid of the gold reserves. And all the economic chicanery that they did, with the taxes and the deregulation that even the business sector did not ask for. And Paris was saying, we failed. And then to see Paris go from that very honest assessment to what he's become now, it's tragic, really.
How far the mighty have fallen.
Well, yeah.
I mean, I don't know if any of you guys saw. There was a recent documentary series on the BBC about Murdoch and the Murdoch Empire, the news empire that he had. And one of the episodes, I think it was like episode 2, it talked about New Labour, but the relationship between Blair, Campbell, Mandelson, and all that. And as Robert was saying, because obviously Blair there was a meeting in 95. I think it was 94 or 95 on one of an island which was owned by Murdoch, and all like the top sort of political figures and media figures and everything went to this island to like this party. And of course Blair turned up, and apparently they want that footage is quite rare, but they managed to show it on the documentary because obviously Blair wanted to suppress it as much as possible, because at the time Labour were like, whoa, why are you going to see Murdoch on this island? Because at that time Murdoch was seen as like the Tory, the Conservative Party's main backer, Tory papers and all that sort of stuff. And of course, one of the things was that in many ways, the attack on the Conservatives and the destruction of the Conservatives in 97, a lot of it comes down also onto the Murdoch papers, because obviously Murdoch and the Sun and everything went behind the Conservatives. And as you said, I've linked in a documentary about the party on the chat, which I found yesterday, and it was about the sort of William Hague, and then Ian Duncan Smith years, and how the sort of, I would say, disarray that they were in, especially William Hague. I mean, his sort of leadership when he became leader, and his sort of first pitch to public was at amusement park, and it was like on these water rapids, and he came down on these water rapids, and all his advisors said, "Oh yeah, that's a brilliant idea. Go for it." And it was basically then the media just put over the top of that footage of him coming down the water rapids with like clown music and everything, and it was new Conservative Party leader. And
the baseball cap that he had, he was told to wear a baseball cap.
That's like that meme, like hello fellow kids.
It was basically I'm down with the kids and everything, and of course also going on at the same time, because I mean this his advisor was I think his advisor was Alan. The chap who was like like in the Conservative Party, ultra Remainer, and he's like, that's that gay chap. What was he called? Alan something or other. And he was around with Theresa May and such.
I know who you mean, but I can't think now.
Yeah, he was the main advisor, and he was and then you had Nicholas Soames, who was in there. So I mean, you can see the sort of very Remainery sort of liberal types within the party who were sort of guiding him. But as it turned out, in 2001, he I think the Conservative Party only made one gain, one seat gain, or one net gain, I should say, because they did lose some seats to the Lib Dems then as well. And so, of course, it went the mantle. The party went on to Ian Duncan Smith, and again, the media were ruthless with Ian Duncan Smith, because they came after him, and the party were. The party were quite skeptical of him. From what I remember, the party were quite skeptical of him. He wasn't really much liked in the party, and of course, he was booted before an election and then Michael Howard. I always thought with Michael Howard, he was quite. I think he was further to the right than the Conservative Party had been since Thatcher. I don't think he was. I thought he was quite right. I mean, we'll probably get considering what you had afterwards, but with David Cameron. But I thought Michael Howard, I think he would have been a good prime minister. I don't think he would have put up with a lot of what's been going on now. Like with the statues, and the Black Lives Matter and the sort of paramilitary stuff in the city, and probably even with Dawn Butler. I mean, who remembers the interview that Michael Howard had with Paxman, and he was literally, I mean, because Paxman was getting really frustrated, and he was like, Howard just sitting there saying, for the last time, no. He was not having any of Paxman's sort of jip, and maybe didn't come across as well, but you have to make that decision, I guess, with the politician, whether you go in there and you get chastised by the journalist and you come across looking weak, or if you're going to go down, you go down fighting. And I think he definitely went down as a fighting sort of person.
Well, the thing, I mean, with William Hague, his leadership was strangled at birth. And I think the media were complicit in that, because they never missed an opportunity to show the clip of the 16-year-old William Hague speaking at the conference, and never missed an opportunity. and so you never got I remember at the time, because I was doing a little bit of local activism, and I was timing the items on the Today program to see how much, when the Labour government announced something, how much airtime they would get compared with how much time the opposition would get. And there was this big imbalance. The government had seemingly soft questions and as much time as they needed to explain, and the Conservatives got a 25-second soundbite. And you could tell even then with Howard, I remember that Paxman interview, and there was another one he did with John Snow on Channel 4.
Yeah, that's right.
Where he was explaining to Jon Snow over and over again how a 40% top-rated tax actually brings in more revenue than a 50%. And Jon Snow was just not getting it. And Michael Howard was every time he went around, look, John, it's really this simple. And he just, each time, Howard just simplified the point even more. And then Snow would go, but surely a 50% top. No, John, listen. And those were the days I really liked Howard.
You just got to fill out a basic econ book whenever that's what they should do, honestly.
But the idea that you couldn't shift Michael Howard off a point, it's just... and I think we need that. I see flashes of that with James Cleverly, but he's got more wit. I mean, his put downs are fantastic, Cleverly, but you just wish, come on, there's got to be a bit more fang. It can't be just a kind of witty put down. You've got to now go on the counter attack.
Now the question is, do you think, because I mean, you have to remember a lot of these politicians in the Conservative Party now were cultivated, like their political worldview was cultivated when Blair was in power. A lot of them, given their ages, or when New Labour was emerging as a thing. Do you think in, say, what was it, like 10, maybe even 20 years' time, that the Conservatives of that sort of generation, that era, do you think they will be more right-wing or more assertive in their principles and beliefs because they are sort of aware of like the media spin, and aware of like that in reality it doesn't really matter what you say because the media will just go on to the next thing? As do you think that there is I guess without sounding like white pill about it, do you think there's any hope in the future?
No white pills allowed.
Well, there are a lot of variables here. I mean, I look to you young folk on Conservative Twitter, and also there's I don't know if you come across the organisation Blue Beyond, which they've got some the guy who runs it, Luke. I mean, he seems like a decent chap. And I look and see that the next generation are going to be far more savvy about the culture wars and just how nasty deceiving the media are. And they're going to be, I think the next generation are going to be sharper. However, my worry is that will there be any mainstream right-wing party by the time, like in 10 years' time? Because the way things are going, I am so frightened that the next Labour government is practically on the verge of passing an enabling act to like.
Oh no!
Well, at least we get to see each other in the camps.
Yeah, we'll get to have a nice, the conversation in the camps will be scintillating, but yeah, but you know what I mean. I am genuinely worried that we in 10 years' time we might not even be allowed to have this conversation. Where, as you know, and we're not being spicy. We're not spicy at all tonight. And yet
we can get spicy if you want.
All of us could get spicy, but you know what I mean. Even
we're not saying anything that is I guess you say like PA or sort of any like patriotic alternative. We're not saying anything that we're not touching on any we're not really touching on any subjects which is beyond the Overton window, really. I mean, in many ways this is sort of conversation that you could be having on, say, like talk radio or the sort of like the other sort of podcasts of like of journalists and such, like The Spectator or something.
We're kind of like, I don't know, the low budget version of the New Culture Forum. We're not doing anything. I'm possibly the Rafe Haynu Mankad of this this group. But that's but the thing is that I worry that we're going to have a generation of mainstream right, and I'm not going to say conservative because there's people saying we need to set up an alternative mainstream right-wing party, and I am sympathetic to that idea. But the nature of these kind of discussions where we talk about economic freedom and we talk about the traditionalism and the kind of the cultural fabric of Britain, and can we have this conversation in a few years' time? That's my fear.
Yes,
I mean it's already difficult socially. I mean, I know especially around people. I mean, obviously, I don't know the exact ages of the rest of the panel, but people my age, it's very uncomfortable, I guess, having this sort of conversation.
Well, at least around certain people, I know I cannot say things, or even just. Yeah, it's really not looking good, especially at university.
I happen to have radicalized a few friends, so I can at least to talk.
Well, a couple of weeks ago at my work, so I said a couple of weeks ago at my workplace, I had a letter handed out to me, which was for like Black Lives Matter letter, and
take the knee,
yeah, basically that's what it was, and it was like the sort of workplace. I guess you could say sort of awareness, saying the company is diverse and the company doesn't tolerate insert such and such talking points, and then it sort of went on about tangent about George Floyd, and it's like, well, yeah, I don't care about junkie criminals, putting it mildly. I mean, for me, that's why I started the streaming, was because this whole internet thing. For me, like I had my life, like IRL sort of life, and then you had the internet bit, and now the internet stuff is more like coming into real life, real world sort of stuff. Yeah. And for me, that's where it's starting to. I'm finding it difficult further and further.
I feel pretty. I mean, up for the last like 6-7 years, like I was able to keep the two apart, like the internet politics, the internet culture, and then just since pretty much the end of May, I've it's almost crossed the line now where you have to just since recently everything that's happened, it's you can't really keep the two apart anymore.
I'm finding it increasingly more difficult as well.
Yeah. It's a shame. I mean, I just want to be left alone, man. I just want to do my own thing. I fucking hate politics.
I think to be fair, I only have 1 or 2 friends who know the sort of full extent of my the amount of shit I spend online.
Yeah, and that's the thing with exactly. And with close friends, it's you kind of have a bit more leeway because the bonds you build up over the years to say a little more. I mean, obviously, normally it'd be quite edgy, but these sort of circles would be kind of just common opinion or just mainstream opinion in these circles. But on the thing, I just at least with, I mean, one of my friends is like, I've started watching Jordan Peterson. He's not like a far right fascist or anything. He says some quite sensible things, and it just feels like a lot of people, at least are just a couple of years behind, where like they see like the trans issue or the riots, and okay, that's wrong, but they haven't thought about these issues for like the amount we have, so they haven't had the time to make opinions.
A couple of years behind is something that I've noticed a lot with some of my close friends, is that I'm like, oh look, you're like me in 2018.
It's like I just Tories, isn't it?
It's we've all been sucked in to the front line on this one.
Yeah, we are on the front line.
I mean, it's nice. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, I was just on holiday in the West Country, and it was just the culture war just doesn't exist out there.
That's that weeks ago as well.
Yeah, without doxing myself, Rhubba, I do live in the West Country, and you went on holiday, I believe, to my native county of Cornwall.
All right. Yes. So I was near Lamorna Cove. That's where I was staying.
Oh. Yeah. I was actually near Lyme Regis a couple of weeks ago as well. So,
and there's no, it was just so refreshing. You step away.
Yeah.
You just step away from it.
With the West Country, it like the whole statue thing down here, because we have like a lot of statues to like Drake and Civil War heroes and everything. And I can tell you what, if where I live in Somerset, if there was an attempt by anybody, whether it's like Antifa or some other activist group, to tear down a statue, it would instantly instigate a riot here. It would be a lynch mob going after the communists.
That's the dream.
Good.
Yeah, well, I'd be the one that'd be going climbing up the church spire, shouting "Boogaloo" now. So, but I mean, no, the West Country is really funny because, I mean, like you have places like Bristol and like your Exeter and Plymouth, which have got like the sort of the woke haven areas and the sort of like the leftist sort of remain, especially got the Remaining time, especially during the referendum. But yeah, elsewhere like in Devon, Somerset, and Cornwall, it's very I guess you could say it's very traditionalist in some regards. I mean, the Conservatives, especially in Devon, a lot of them, I think most of them, are part of the Cornerstone group, which is the traditional socially right, traditional Conservatives, high Tories, that sort of stuff. Hence, with Shire Tory, because I'm part of the Cornerstone group as well. So I better put that out there as point of clarity. Yeah, the sort of, I mean, especially in the West Country, they're very socially right, the Conservatives here, more so than I would say, like, say, the Southeast or something.
Yeah, I just think you have to get out of the M25. I mean, I'm in Surrey, but it's not particularly woke around here. Well, it can't really be. There's so much of the army around where I live.
I think a lot. There's the sort of towns in the home counties around London where it's the people commuting into London. Those sort of towns are quite woke. If you go to more like the quieter towns in the home counties, there's none of it about really.
Well, it is. So I think certainly Hertfordshire. I think St Albans is quite woke.
That's exactly. That's really near to
St Albans is Libby.
Yeah.
St Albans is Libbyland. Guildford less so. Guildford is still a mixture. Some liberal. Some dry conservative. It's
the Cotswolds and Cheltenham is quite. It's getting there. It's getting quite. It's sort of half and half, but it's sort of leaning towards the liberal side of it. I
used to reject the Cotswolds. Just get rid of it. Don't need it.
Oh no, there's too many nice I know
beautiful place.
I know a really nice hotel down that way. I don't want to lose it.
We'll leave the hotel. Everything else.
We'll leave the hotel. But the thing is that when we say liberal, because I can see a fracture in liberalism between what the Lib Dems have morphed into and the kind of orange bookers. I think I see a rift heading there. I think the centre left cannot hold in this state of insanity. The insanity of the current Lib Dems is going to cause a rift in that centre left.
Right.
Well, that's why I've been. I mean, like with British Knight, he had an interview with the leader of the Liberal Party, the I guess you could say what would have been the classical Liberal Party, I've spoken to a couple Liberal Party members. I think one of them even stood here in the last general election in my constituency, and from what I can see, they're not communists. They're definitely not socialists, and they don't subscribe to the social democrat aspects of the Lib Dems. Hence why they many of them refused to join the Lib Dems when the merge, especially the old ones, when the merge happened back in, I think, what was it, Rudder? Was it 1987? 87. Yeah.
No, it was 88 because it was in the aftermath of the 87 election. Yeah.
Yeah, that was it. Because there was a contingent. I remember it being said where I lived in Devon. There was, I believe, there was a good portion of like the constituency party that refused to agree with the merger because they did the Social Democrats. It was like, well, no, we're not going to bed with these socialists, and that was the sort of mentality where some of them just couldn't get on board with this merger, and so the Liberal Party, if you look after like the elections afterwards, you would see obviously Lib Dems, carrying on the mantle of the alliance that happened before, but you still also had the sort of schism of the old Liberal Party, and in places like Liverpool, even today, they have a strong following in local elections and even in general elections. They might get I think 6-9, I think even reach like 10% of the vote in some constituencies. Now, I think the Liberal Party, I think if you were liberal in that sense, I would be looking at that party for me, I'd hope that party would take over from the Lib Dems long term down the line, because they seem rather reasonable. But as we've seen with the libertarians in America, everything seems to be infiltrated by the socialists. And that is the problem of our time. It's even the Conservative Party. I mean, I would say the Conservative Party has definitely got socialist elements. I mean, I shared on my Twitter this supposed conservative who was raging against the idea that we should be conserving anything, and it's like, I mean, absolute brainlets in the party. I mean, for God's sake, guys, the clue's in the name.
Yeah. I mean, there's that group, what's it, LGBT plus conservative, who now I know a few gay conservatives who won't have anything to do with them, so that they, if you took out the sexuality angle of it, the rest of what they stand for in no way resembles conservatism, and yeah, you're right. You've got the infiltration is everywhere, and I think there was an intake around about 2006 where, to make the party seem more electorally viable, we took in the Rory Stewarts, the Anna Soubry's. We sort of kind of cast the net a little bit too wide.
And then in 2015, we cannibalized the Lib Dems in 2015. And there were, I mean, especially where I live here in Somerset, there were a lot of because I got active with the party probably back in 2010. No, sorry, not 2010, about 2014-ish, 2014, when I first sort of knowing the local party. But there were a lot of Lib Dems, and I know a few who were Lib Dems who ditched the Lib Dems I even know one who ditched the Lib Dems literally a year after the referendum, where he went from like an extreme Remainer to a Brexiteer, and he did like a full like 180 over about a few months, which I always thought was a bit sus. But I never knew how. Maybe he did have like a sort of like a along the road to Damascus conversion. Who knows? But maybe he went to the European Parliament and he saw it and he thought, oh God, what's this about?
He munched his first black pill.
Yeah,
a lot of those they got admitted into the Conservative Party because the question that would have been asked them, do they believe in business? And they all would have said yes. Rory Stewart would have said yes. Anna Soubry would have said yes. Dominic Grieve would have said yes. But they believe in the big corporate business. So the bigger the corporate
market.
Yeah,
it's
so
not the nation of shopkeepers, is it?
Yeah, it's not the nation of shopkeepers. It's the very big corporation of Europe kind of thing, and board. They love the boardroom. They look at the 1975 film Rollerball as a training video rather than a warning. and so
the Hunger Games, I would say,
or the Hunger Games,
yeah, because when I first saw the Hunger Games, I just thought, I looked at it and I was like, oh, this is a rip-off of Rollerball. What?
Rollerball with kids.
Yeah, and also there's that Japanese film where it's like they put all these Japanese kids on.
Battle Royale.
That's a good film. I swear to God, Battle Royale. I think it was said before, but Battle Royale was like I imagine it was a very angry teacher wrote the story for that, who just got really pissed off with kids and said, "Hey, I just want to fantasize about showing them all on islands and making them fight to the death."
And because they didn't speak the language of we're going to nationalize everything. You think, okay, that's the only conservative credentials you need to be a PPC, and you just go, actually, no, it's more than that.
Yeah, I mean, Heidi Allen. Now, there's a good footage because she was one that, of course, went on to join the independent group and then the Lib Dems. And she said, like, literally 6 months before she jumped the ship of the party, I'm a conservative. I believe in Brexit. I believe in local businesses. I believe in, as you said, the conservative principles. And then 6 months later, it was like, I'm going to dedicate my entire political life to destroy the Conservative Party. And it's like, I remember saying at times into the Conservative Party meeting, I said, maybe we should have like some vetting process. I mean, it'd be like I said. I remember like using the Star Wars analogy. It's like, maybe we shouldn't be like the Jedi and just like be blind to the presence in the party. Maybe we should do something about it.
Eject Steve right now.
Yes.
Here's the thing about Heidi Allen, right? That I noticed that it. A sort of 2 years in photographs with Heidi Allen. Because you cast your mind back about 2-3 years ago, she kind of had that cherubic, cheeky, nice look, public image. And that the more Remainer she became, the harder the face became.
Yeah.
And she kind of like, it was like, the veil had slipped.
Yeah, real, like, even Anna Soubry, there was like real personality change in all of them.
Yeah.
Oh, and Sam Gima. Oh God, Sam Gima. Was it Sam Gima or Gima?
Sam Gimia, or I felt betrayed by him.
Oh, I know.
Personally betrayed.
Such an Anakin, that one. He really was.
Anakin Skywalker. Because he was there. Wasn't he? 4 years ago, he was saying, I'm going to defend free speech on the campuses. And I go, okay, he's one to watch. And then he completely backtracked on everything.
Yeah, I mean, and he also went on like tirades. I think he went on like Good Question Time saying, I agree with traditionalism. I'm a traditionalist. I family and faith, and then then literally out of nowhere, he when it came to the European Union, he was like, "Well, actually, I'm in favour of remaining." And then it was like, "Okay." And then he said, "Oh, I respect the referendum. I'm still a Conservative. I'm not going to join the Lib Dems. No way on earth I'm going to do that." And then suddenly, bloop, "Oh yeah, I'm joining the Lib Dems now. Death to the Conservatives." And it's like, what?
Pretty based.
Via the people were wrong. The referendum result was wrong. He just, I mean, there was a complete,
I didn't expect it from him. I expected Rory Stewart to go because Rory Stewart is a nasty little fucking weasel. Sorry, excuse my language. He's a nasty little insidious weasel who has a very checkered history in Iraq when he was like the governor general, regional governor. Yeah, he was like a regional governor in Iraq, and he basically was in command of like the Basra region. And of course, anyone because I remember the Iraq War quite well. Anyone who knows about what happened in Basra will probably know why he is such a walking monumental disaster area. And now I always thought Rory Stewart would be the one that would be the betrayer. I didn't expect Sam Jima, and that was what really surprised me. I mean, I think Rory Stewart, he ended up being kicked out of the party anyway in Boris's purge, and I was like, well, I mean, I was sort of half right, I guess.
Just everything he does is weird, but it's funny because you know a bit about Basra because I know personally Major General Tim Cross, who was he was put in charge of the reconstruction out there, and every time you try and get him onto the subject, so what were like the political orders you were given? He just goes, his hands are still tied by the Official Secrets Act, but you could just his face drops and he says, "The wrong people were appointed. I'll just leave it at that."
Oh, you know who's talking about? He's talking about Rory Stewart when he comes to that point.
Yeah. He's really good. I mean, he is just such a principled man. Tim Cross. It's
good to hear.
Yeah.
We need more people like that in the military.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've actually my youngest son plays football for a local club, and one of the other dads is a squadron commander at Middle Wallop with the helicopters, and he's a brilliant advert for the army. He just goes, "I've just been flying an Apache, best job in the world." And
the dream, brother.
he lives the dream, and he's just, I was up at Spade Arm and we were firing missiles. Like, where am I too old to join now? But I mean, it's just I love hanging out with services people anyway because they're just
lads.
Good lads.
Rhubba, if I could draw your attention to the chat, Economic Erudite has a request for you.
Yes. Could you say quack, quack, quack?
We're going to induct you into the duck gang.
So it's quack, 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 quack. I don't know why there's two C's.
Oh, it's a meme culture.
It's a meme culture, yes. Oh, you crazy kids.
up to our ways.
I used to resist memes like I can't stand them. I've just caved in.
Embrace it.
I've just caved in. There's no point. It's like Boomer. I have to own it now.
That's the best way to do with internet stuff, really.
Now, obviously, obviously on the topic of Boomer, Rhubba, we've got Joz here now. Of course,
I've blocked him for 2 weeks.
The highlight of the stream is going to be this explosive interaction that we're going to have between the two. Now, Joz, what did you say to Rhubba a few months ago on the topic of Boomer?
That led me to blocking him for 2 weeks.
Well, it was more the fact that you preceded the blocking with if it was something like if we weren't in lockdown, I'd hunt you down, which I thought was the fucking funniest thing I'd ever seen. I was like, there were screenshots of that around everywhere. It was amazing.
Don't get me riled. I mean, don't let the pasty face and the resemblance to Christopher Biggins fool you. I can be riled. There is a beast. No, I think I was getting it a lot from. I think there was a lot of bad stuff, because when I kind of got really angry and annoyed with Jaws was round about the time I was thinking about leaving Unpopular Opinions, because backstage it was getting quite toxic with a few people. And
Yes.
I was under a lot of strain there, and I spent a lot of my time on Twitter having to explain myself to groypers and sort of having to dispel lies that were being told. And I just think, Joz, you just chipped in at the wrong time. So
I thought it was hilarious.
Josh, you were the bystander, that the one that decided to join in, and it was like you were the one that had all the direction, the fallout.
You stood in between me and the person I was really angry at. So yeah, I want to clear this up. It was not AA.
Yes, I mean, to be honest, if you look back through the sort of vague Twitter comments, you could probably guess who it is. I'm not going to say who it is, but you can, if you look back through some of the even some of the old streams, you can sort of guess who it is. As I think it was even referenced with the Yoko Ono. So there we go. There's my clue. Clue to everyone. Yoko Ono of the
Yoko, yeah. Oh, he didn't like it when I called him that. He really didn't like it. He went off at me in DMs.
And by the way, Rhubba, we got another special guest coming on tonight.
Well, that was the thing. On Monday night. So I'm scheduled to go in at 9:30, and he who shall not be named his slot was 8:00, and so we overlapped for about an hour on the Fake Accents Unite. And so what happened was that, I said, right, I'm not going to say anything. This is, and by that stage, it was Dankula's show. It was completely the Count Dankula show with with special guests. And then he made a comment about killing people, and it just, the chat died. Just nobody wanted to answer it. It just went silent for about 4 seconds after he mentioned about killing people. And I just thought, yeah, okay, I don't have to say anything because he's just he's played himself. So, and we just got through the rest of the stream. In fact, we did actually chat at one stage about one issue, which we kind of agreed on. And I just thought, okay, I'm happy at this level. This is fine, but I don't want to go back. I've had a couple of brief chats with AA as well since then. So we don't hate each other. It's just I had to leave that show. It's just, like Britisher had to leave. It's just, yeah. And now I'm on shows like this.
Yeah, I mean, well, you see, I declared yesterday, because obviously you got the cartel, which the AA and the other sort of the union forces have created, and I announced yesterday with Jaws and the others on the creation of my own I guess you could say cartel, my own version of cartel, which is the Confederation of Independent Streamers, or CIS, as it will be commonly known as. And of course, we don't recognise the cartel here, and I think AA is streaming at the moment, so yeah, we don't recognise any of the cartel or any of that sort of stuff. And at the end of the day, I don't think we're gonna. I mean, let's be honest. This sort of stream isn't going to hamper with any cartel business, but
the cartel is just one of AA's jokes.
Yeah,
it is a meme.
yeah, but he does have a spreadsheet. He does have like a spreadsheet, though. I mean, there's like a spreadsheet
of
like.
He does.
I imagine it's a bit of a sort of gentleman's rule.
He's got. Since lockdown, he's had a lot of time on his hands to make even more spreadsheets. It's just AA's got to AA, It's
got to embrace the autism.
Yeah.
Question from Economic Erudite. Question for the panel: is an Oreo a biscuit? Yes, it is.
Biscuits with a creamy filling.
Yes.
Unless it's the Oreo ice cream, then it isn't.
Yeah, clarify yourself, sir.
This is a leading question that we don't appreciate here.
No, that's no.
At least be a man and ask about Jaffa cakes.
And also, I want to go back to I'm going to go back to quite an old comment right at the start of it. Airborne Osborne. I'll watch this later on replay. Was it Sorry Boy? Use Loser Stream 2. Well, I tell you what, we don't need your view, Airborne Osborne.
You will not be missed.
I don't care if who's streaming. You stay here, mate. That's what we don't need your stream.
Who's streams all the time anyway?
I'm joking, Airborne Osborne. You can. Most people are going to be watching this on catch up anyway because it's like they got plenty of other things to be watching on Friday evening than us talking about like conservative leaders from 20 years ago.
But a lot of people find Oozloo's voice very relaxing. So
he does have a good radio presenter voice.
He does. He should be like late night on Radio 2 doing a kind of history of prog rock show.
Oh, it was a debate on the deep. There we go. It was a debate on the deep law. All the Americans refused to acknowledge that Oreos were biscuits. Yeah, but Americans are retarded though, so it doesn't really matter what they.
Biscuits are like scones anyway. They're just like something else.
Yeah, they don't.
I mean, they call like chips crisps, and they eat with like one hand at a table. I mean, to be honest, they're literally worse than barbarians at this stage.
They are, but fucking hell, it's disgraceful, isn't it?
I know. So, to be honest, America is. I mean, from what we know from America in recent weeks, they are beyond help at this stage. In fact, in many ways, like ideology-wise, being exported from America to here is number. I mean, forget about like coronavirus for a second. That's the number one virus that's coming into this country that the government definitely needs to do something about.
At least we can agree with the Marxists on one point that America is a virus and a cancer.
Well, us, the Marxists and the Islamists are all on agreement on one issue.
We're on the same page there.
the great Satan, Babylon.
Make a compact with the Marxists and the Islamists. So they'll go for institutions. The some of them will go and do some suicide bombing. Don't know what we'll do though.
You say that
I disavow any bombings or any thought of bombings.
Don't do this at home, kid. The trouble with Americans is that we just absolutely hate all the little things that they do and all the stuff they come out with. But at the same time, you meet Americans and you meet a particular type, the ones like Rad Lib or Staff Sergeant Sniper, and you just go, oh, these are the Americans I like. They're good. They're good company.
Wholesome ones.
Yeah, the wholesome ones, the ones that you meet in the middle of America. You know, the one.
If the West Coast, just California, just sunk into the ocean, America would be a much better place.
It would. Yeah.
Oh, my first American that I met was a teacher, and she was like from Minnesota, and she was. God, my God. She was very attractive, but she was very Minnesotan, if that makes sense. She was very Hillary Clinton-fied, I would say. I mean, they're very Democrat, very. I mean, she thought that Mitt Romney. This is a time when Mitt Romney was like the Republican leader, and she thought like Mitt Romney was like the evil personified. So God knows what she thinks of Trump at the moment.
Well, I mean, I have I dated an American at university and was talking to her not that long ago actually, and she thinks that the American government is run by genuine National Socialists. Like, as far as I could tell, there was literally no irony in that when she said it, and it just I have to take a minute to think about that.
It's just to the point where is it even worth engaging with, because they're just too far gone.
It's like I don't think they know what they're saying when they say that sort of thing,
because it's so disconnected from reality.
From plenty of other people, they talk about fascism and National Socialism and stuff, but they just don't seem to understand what it means. Like the whole thing recently with the the Save the Post Office. I don't know whether you saw that.
That was so weird.
A nationalised post office is exactly what a fascist would want. I mean, I saw like propaganda
fascism
going
is pro free market, pro limited state. You know,
I saw things going around saying that the post office has survived war and it's going to survive fascism. And it's like, you really think the fascists will be trying to privatize the National Post Service? You fucking moron.
It just was when that first broke and somebody said, "Here's how you get to save the post office." I just tweeted back, "Is this a joke?" Because I just thought this is really scraping the bottom of the barrel of like the fascists are here. The fascists are here.
We actually have there's another question in the chat from Economic You'd right.
How much washing up liquid?
Depends what. Yeah, it depends what you've cooked.
Yeah,
if it's something greasy, then probably not much.
You know, if you've cooked a like bolognese sauce in a saucepan, well, and you left it overnight, well, yeah, you're going to need some detergent. You know, scrambled eggs in a pan, yeah, you're going to need some detergent.
Well, I've got a question for Jack. What washing up liquid would you recommend for us? You know, what are we talking about? Are we talking to some high quality professional stuff, or is it just Tesco basics?
I mean, if he was cleaning the bathroom, I know he'd go for a toilet duck. That'd be
of course he would.
I think that's a business opportunity.
I hope you tell me
a business opportunity. Okay.
It's not pyramid selling. Oh no!
I hate to tell you guys, but I got to go now in a minute. Yeah, thanks for coming on and discuss. Probably having this sort of general chat, I guess. Went to some interesting places, and I'm probably. I will also say that this sort of weekly thing will be on next week. But I'll be joined by British Knight and Nathan Hood. There's only going to be two because I've decided to implement the rule of two. From now on, the rule of two, and then we're going to have we've got some quite big sort of heavy hitters in the future now coming on, so we got that coming up. But I'll let you all know in good time. But again, thank you very much. Thank you, Joz and Plantagent and Rhubba, for all coming on and taking time out during your evening to come on here and discuss sort of the sort of stuff that we would discuss usually.
Oh, you've given me hope.
Oh God, that's terrible. Oh God, that's even worse.
No, I mean, just
give the old man hope for the future.
I have a torch to pass on. You know, like, I'm not at retirement. I'm far off the retirement age, but yeah, I am. Yeah, I doubled the average age of this chap. So.
Yes, I think yes. No, I mean, thank you guys for coming on, and thank you, chat, for and I guess entertaining us with like deep lore, especially you, Economic Rude as well. Maybe I'll try and get you on one of these streams as well, maybe in a couple of weeks' time or something like that. Because I know that he does some streaming as well, doesn't he? I've seen a couple of you, and all the Crusader Kings as well, and someone say quack before the stream ends. You've had like 3 quacks already, mate. How many more?
You've got to give him one more.
Quack.
All right, quack.
I was wondering fucking that scene in Jackass when they I don't know if you guys remember that one where they like fucking shoot the guys with paintball and they're dressed as ducks.
I didn't see that one.
Oh yeah, it's pretty bit of a outlier reference.
I remember Jackass, but I must have been out for that one.
I think it's in the film.
I didn't see the film. I just watched this. I thought I don't want to pay at the time £8 to see what I see on TV.
Oh, it's money well spent.
Okay. All right. Thank you, guys, and I'll see you all later.
Night.
Good night.